Hey everyone, welcome to the Biohacking Collective YouTube channel. Today we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Viktor Mifsud, aka
Hello.
Blind Biohacker.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
Thanks for having me on.
Nice. So we knew each other for like 2 years maybe through Instagram, and then we finally met at the Health Optimization Summit. You told me about your movie. And I have seen it. Very good movie. So I would like to have you on as a guest, and I'm very honored that you are here today. So can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Viktor Mifsud. I'm the blind biohacker, and what that really means is I'm actually, in fact, legally blind. I was born with a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which basically means it's a quote unquote genetic condition where my visual fields kind of have been narrowing from the outside inwards. And I have my central vision, which I guess leads to the fact that I don't appear blind or legally blind because I have central vision, so I can make eye contact with a person. But my scope of vision is very narrow, depending on available light as well. So in the in the nighttime or when it is low lit, I see actually a lot less, or so that visual scope actually shrinks and kind of like, and it's not a perfect circle. It's so I've had that, like I said, for most of my life, and it didn't really start to affect me until I was about 21. I mean, my eyes were actually okay enough for me to obtain a driver's license when I was 16. So I drove for 5-6 years and then went for a routine eye exam, and the optometrist told me that my vision was actually getting worse and they were to revoke my driver's license, which as a young teenager, I didn't take that very well because it was really hard because it meant my eyes were not getting better, things were getting worse, and I lost a lot of my independence and didn't know how to really deal with it at the time. So that was really the start of knowing that my body wasn't the same as everybody else, and I was different. So it was a big wake up call for me. So excuse me. So that's one thing about me. I've since have learned a lot about my vision and health from the inside and the outside on how to be well as possible. So yeah, I mean that's just a basic introduction for me.
Yeah. So you could say like that's how you entered the biohacking field. Like you started to like want to research about your eyesight and how to like fix it, or were you interested in it before, or well, how did you end up in the biohacking space?
Well, it started about 10 years ago. Basically, I was told that there's nothing that can be done about my eyes. You know, people often ask that, oh, why don't you just get like laser eye surgery or something? But it has nothing to do with that. You have to excuse me. I have a bit of a cold, so I might
No problem.
cough and and sneeze a bit. So it's the season.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. I was told that nothing can be done about it, and for a long time I just accepted that fact. And you know, and it's kind of like a spell that a doctor can put on you. It's like, oh, like he takes control over your healing just by saying like you can't do anything about it, so don't bother trying. But if the body's intelligent, why is it that when we break our arm, the body heals?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's you're so right. I mean, that's very like they judge you. They say that there's nothing you can do about it, but there really is. The body is very powerful, and I think that was very good about the movie.
And so it really took me down a big rabbit hole in terms of what needs to be in order to heal. I mean, there's certain conditions that might heal a little faster.
Yeah, of course.
You know, when I started really looking into my eyesight issue, when something is genetic, like what does that really mean? Like how long has it been embedded in your genes? And then a part of my journey was dealing with a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
You know, from just growing up in my family and experiencing some trauma as a child, and these things kind of stick with you from an early age. You know, like implicit traumas are programmed in your body from like the 0 to 7 age group, and then when you get older, you have these ways of being, and you have these, you know, approaches to life that get triggered by something that was seeded in your childhood.
Yeah.
And those things are often pretty challenging to change in your adult life.
Yeah.
So, and the same thing I learned can happen through an ancestral perspective. So something happened in my ancestors, you know, my grandfather or great grandfather or whoever in my lineage, where a trauma happened and it was embedded in my genes, and you know, it played with the genetic switch for, you know, for my eyesight. And there's a lot of evidence and research now with you know, Mark Wolin's book, It Didn't Start With You, and just the way the brain is. And you know, Gabor Mate talks a lot about you know, early childhood trauma creating autoimmune issues. So until you alleviate the unconscious trauma in your system, that program is going to stay with you.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of what I am still exploring and have explored in my previous my documentary, My Neuroplastic Adventure, which is, that's the title of it.
Yeah, it's a great title. I mean, I thought it was like only a movie about like how to hack your eyesight, but as you said, it's like more of a journey, a spiritual journey, and also a journey into like showing people that there are like options. You can fix yourself. You're not like, if a doctor say you're doomed, you're not doomed. I mean, there's always something you can do, and we don't know everything yet. I mean, it's pretty stupid of doctors saying that. They could say more like, we can't fix it yet, but there might be a solution in the future. And yeah, I think it was a very exciting movie. And also I got to like learn some new stuff and learn about new people, especially this like the guy David Weber was his name, right?
Yes, his name was David Weber. He actually in fact passed away last year.
Oh,
he was dealing with cancer, and he had succumbed to cancer. But yes, David Weber, I first learned about him through Dr. Norman Deutsch's book, The Brain's Way of Healing. And he was known as the blind man who taught himself to see by using this method called the Feldenkrais method, where he uses these various exercises to control blood flow to the eyes with certain exercises. And I go over some of these exercises in my film to differentiate the systems by putting an eye patch on one eye and throwing this colored ball from side to side. And then it's a really interesting exercise, and you can tell it actually works. And I took a couple of his classes before he did pass away, and it's very, very, very interesting approach to healing. And again, these modalities should be taught as normal everyday things to really explore our bodies. So I think it's very important. And I believe his courses before he passed away were uploaded to the Feldenkrais website, so one can still take his course and learn more about him. So very fascinating individual.
Yeah, really, really. And he fixed his eyesight completely by doing this, but I guess it's a pretty long project to do this.
Well, he had uveitis, and his eyes were really bad. His eyes were, I mean, it's a very different condition than mine. It's a lot of like inflammation. He was completely blind. His eyes were completely inflamed, and through this exercise of increasing the blood flow, it drastically reduced the inflammation, thus allowing him to see. I know he had some surgeries which probably distorted a lot of the lenses, and if you notice in the film, he wears really thick glasses. So you know,
I saw that.
And I'm sure there was a couple of things that were still not in place for him to heal to the depths of that he needed to. But you know, he did learn a lot, and he did regain some function of his sight, which is great.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's more what you think that's even possible. So I mean, that shows that you can really be in charge of your own health and like find methods to improve yourself. So and you also talked about like learning disabilities and growing up with that. And is there something you want to talk about more? Or?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big part of my journey. Was I was always bad at school, and I didn't know why. I just thought I was stupid, and I sat, you know, doing my homework, and I just felt like the information wouldn't get absorbed, or that something was wrong with me. I mean, I suffered from attention deficit disorder, and I had no idea why. And coming across the work of Barbara Aerosmith, she was dubbed the woman who changed her brain. She had severe learning disabilities as well, and through this through her research, she created these very interesting cognitive exercises that actually train the brain to grow in these underdeveloped areas. Again, almost exercising like very specific regions of the brain to get them back online to have the brain function as a whole. I mean, there's a very interesting process with the Aerosmith method in terms of like an assessment to see how your brain is functioning and where the weaker areas are. And after I got assessed, you know, there was most definitely some weakened areas. And I spent 2 years as an adult at 30. I'm actually now 41, reprogramming my brain, and it helped quite a bit. And also my eyesight, since it was very limited scope, I take in smaller amounts of information. So me versus somebody who is fully sighted, if they're going to read, I mean, my scope is so limited that I'm absorbing less information. So that was a part of it as well. But the school helped me quite a bit in terms of getting other aspects of my brain back online. And it's kind of allowed me to do the research that I've been doing now and absorb information. And another part that kind of goes beyond the, you know, scholastic is relationships. Like when we talk to people, or we're trying to engage in relationships with a significant other, there's learning disabilities affect your understanding. So, you know, when you're engaging with somebody, if you're missing some key concepts or cues, that affects relationships. And if you have learning disabilities, that also affects relationships too. So people with not fully functioning brains might have difficulty in relationships.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. But I mean, this question is very, very relevant nowadays. I mean, we see these like ADD, ADHD increasing a lot, right? People with learning. I don't even know if there is learning disabilities, or sometimes you just need to put a person in a like certain label on persons. Maybe just there is like some people need different ways to learn stuff. But we are very keen on like labeling small kids because they don't learn according to the like system developed for like basically a normal set of people. I mean, I also had like tough time in school with math, and I didn't think I was able to study math. And then when I became older, now I'm an engineer, you know. But they told me, you suck at math. But I mean, it's not true. I just had to find another way to learn.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it too, right? People learn different ways, and people absorb information in different levels. But you know, in my film, we really understand now that we're learning more about the brain than we ever have before in our life.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And from the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, it's, if somebody's been traumatized as a childhood, which, you know, a lot of us are, whether it's a big T trauma or a little T trauma. And what I mean by that is, like, a big T trauma is like, you know, you witnessed you know, your father dying or something, which is a major trauma. And obviously that would have a tremendous impact on, you know, growing up. And it's also, you know, we're very sensitive beings, and a little T trauma could be like, you know, you had an absent mother. She was working all the time and she was never home. And since we're so sensitive, that also has a very tremendous impact in our mental health. And we should acknowledge that and realize that we all need equal compassion and care growing up. So I talk about that in my film, and a lot of my film is really coming to terms and being as open as I can with my upbringing and my mental health journey. And, you know, there's a scene in the film with my therapist. Like, if you were to tell me like 10 years ago that, you know, you're going to have an on-camera interview with your therapist, I'd be like, no way in hell am I going to do that. But I've come to such a point where I've been so open and honest about my journey that I had nothing to hide. And I want to be as open as possible to talk about what I went through growing up and what, you know, and what I went through and how difficult it was to process, because there were some very, very, very challenging times growing up. And I want this film to be like a roadmap for others who were in a situation not exactly like mine, but, you know, everyone deals with mental health issues. Everyone deals with health issues. You know, everyone deals with like mysterious health issues, like things that autoimmune, or, you know, that a doctor can say, you have this and I don't know what to tell you. But I want to give people options, that there are things to explore. And I did this film before I even knew what the heck biohacking was. So I've been, you know, hacking myself for the past, you know, 10 plus years before there wasn't even a biohacking movement, you know, and that's what I want this film to be. It just so people have like different options of like, oh, maybe your brain is inflamed, that's why you're not functioning optimal. Like, you know, look into red light therapy, or look into PEMF, look into cognitive reprogramming, look into going to your unconscious mind to alleviate traumas so you can have more clarity and release some baggage so you can be free. And one big thing that I find in the biohacking world is a lot of people just focus on their spacesuit. Like, oh, I need to take these supplements and I need to get my red light therapy, which is all fine and dandy. But there's our inner world and our outer world. You know, a lot of people either seem to be focused on the outer world, and then you get the spiritual community or those people who are just focusing on their inner world. Like, oh, I need to, you know, constantly go into therapy and constantly, you know, whatever, doing psychedelic therapy or doing, you know, this inner work. But it's really about a balance of the two worlds, I think. And the body will naturally kind of come into balance.
But it's also like typically our age now, everything is like so much focused on the outside, like instant gratification and everything. So I think people always want to blame, I mean, the external for how they feel, and like, okay, I don't feel good because I don't have a six pack. But as you say, it's very important to do that inner journey. And I mean, I think everybody needs that. I mean, everybody's been through trauma, even if they don't know about it. I mean, you're very open about it, but I mean, the stuff you talk about in the movie and the methods, I think it's very relevant to everyone, actually. I mean, everybody would benefit, I think, from doing like an inner journey and finding out more about who they really are.
I think so. And a lot of people don't do it because they are, they're scared to go inside
Yeah.
and see what they might find.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like shadow work that needs to be done because we all have a shadow side that if you ignore, it kind of can rear its ugly head if not acknowledged properly. And that was a big part of the work that I was doing. And it wasn't easy work, and I had some great people and there's a lot of different modalities. Like somatic therapy is very powerful.
Mm.
And to really help, because trauma ends up getting stored as like an energy in tension in the body, because we hold on to things in that way, and there's ways to release it to become free, free and open.
Yeah.
So it's it's been an interesting journey with the film. And we've premiered it at a couple of conferences, and it's going to be premiering in Montreal in April, and
That's amazing.
a few other screenings.
Yeah.
Eventually we're going to release it to iTunes, which is great. And I have a sort of sequel in mind.
Yeah, that would be very interesting to hear about that. Can you tell us anything about that? Secret project, maybe?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's just really like, it's just really my life in terms of what I'm doing right now, and what I've learned and what I'm working on, because my vision issue is still relatively there. I mean, I'm still legally blind. I haven't cured my vision completely, but there's some very interesting things that are coming down the line, and some new things that I have started doing. Recently, I'm sure you're very familiar with peptides.
Yeah.
The peptide revolution.
One of my favorite things right now, I would say.
Oh yeah. It's they're a pretty interesting, hot topic right now. I mean, they've been around for over 20, 30 years in Russia with Dr. Kavinson. And about a year ago, I was introduced to some of the Kavinson studies. And he created this some very interesting peptide bioregulators, like for the brain and for the thymus gland. And he also created one for the retina. It's called retinamelin. And there's some interesting data showing that the retinamelin has drastically improved sight for people with my condition, age molecular degeneration. I haven't tried them yet, but since learning about peptides, I've been working with, I got introduced to Dr. Seitz, and he's the head of the International Peptide Society, and he's like, the peptide guy. So I got introduced to him through Tailor-Made Compound Pharmacy, which is probably one of the best prescription-based peptide companies in the world. They're like the Porsche of peptides. Yeah. So I met him earlier this year, or I should say last year, because it's January now, but in November I met him. And I'm now being basically taken on as a research client, and will be I've already started working with some foundational peptides to help build my immune system and regulate my growth hormones. And I am using some peptide eye drops for now, but it's going to be a bit of a process, maybe about a 2 or 3 year process to see how we can get things in order. And basically, it's all about creating this senescence process. So basically, what's happening in my eyes, or what's not happening in my eyes, is the cells in my eyes are not dying properly. So they end up dying and just kind of sitting there as zombie cells. So they're just there.
Okay, so
what So it's just basically what needs to happen is the cells need to die and then disappear, and then so they can regenerate. So now they're sort of dying and just staying there, not making way for the new cells. So there's a protocol which I can't tell all of what I'm doing and will be doing,
of course.
but we're kind of hitting it from a few different ways to basically expedite the senescence process to allow the cells to do what they're supposed to do. So that's kind of where I am with it right now. I mean, I'm only 6 weeks into certain things, and I've already noticed some changes with my immune system and my body composition so far. And I've just recently started some eye drops. I'm about a week or two into them, and I've done all the before tests. So I've checked my visual fields test and know how many degrees my sight is. So I'm going to be trying a few different things down the line to see if it in fact has an effect. You know, I will be trying that Cavinson retinal peptide as well. Eventually, I have it in my fridge, but I was told to wait to do some foundational stuff before we start hitting the eyes with some very interesting peptides, and they're going to be making me some more custom things, and I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it sounds very interesting. So you talk about senescence. So have you studied the FOXO4 DRI? It's supposed to be a senolytic, they call it, right?
I haven't explored that one yet. I know about it. It's a very expensive peptide, if I'm not mistaken. It's I've seen it on Can Labs, which I like their peptides as well. They're out of Montreal. They make some good quality research peptides, and which I was experimenting with before kind of getting involved with them too. So, but yeah, FOXO4 is very interesting. MOTS-C is very interesting. There are some, I mean, every week there's new peptides being invented. So I'm very curious to see what's coming down the line. And one of the things with my meeting with Dr. Siege, he told me, he's like, 2020 is going to be the year of the peptide. And I believe it.
Yeah, I believe so. It feels like the future. I mean, like when you talk about this, like the bioregulators that can go in and basically act as signaling molecules and start activating protein creation and activate other peptides and stuff. It feels incredible. It's amazing stuff.
Yeah, and one of the and in terms of people wanting to get involved with it, and again, I'm not a doctor, so don't take my advice, but in that sense, but probably one of the most interesting peptides that I think could be useful for a lot of people are the Thymus and alpha-1. I would say that has been a big game changer for me, and a lot of people's immune systems are compromised, and as you age, your thymus gland shrinks. So the Thymus and alpha-1 is the signal that your thymus gland gives out. So and the other counter signal is TB4. So those two in conjunction are very, very, very interesting. That I'd say to look into, and and again, as we age, our growth hormone production kind of slows down. I think at 26, your growth hormones kind of are not the same. So, and there's some very interesting peptides like the CJC ipamorelin combination, which I'm also using right now. I've only been on it for 6 weeks and have seen tremendous change in my body composition. I've always had, my whole life, I've always had a little bit of, fat around my tummy and love handles, which, never wanted to go away. And I'm not a fat guy. I've always been relatively skinny, but this spot never really wanted to disappear. But now it's it's going away pretty significantly. And I am exercising, but not, I'm going to be starting to do a bigger exercise routine with kettlebells and whatnot. I'm doing a lot of yoga and a lot of stretching and a lot of like basic exercises. And I mean, I eat, I've always ate pretty well when I was dealing with a lot of gut issues. So I had to really be, gluten-free and, so now I eat like protein and some carbs, a lot of good meats, clean meats. So, and a bit of carbs. So yeah, it's just really, really interesting. And I think there's a lot of great research now, and there's a lot of great data with some of these peptides, and it can be a game changer. And it was for me, because there's a lot of times, like, I tried everything, like to try and fix my stomach and trying to fix my immune system and just trying to optimize my hormones, and nothing is working quite like the peptides. And back to the CJC ipamorelin, that has been a game changer for my sleep, because I've always had sleep issues. I think ever since I was about 24, 25, my sleep sucked. I mean, I did about 4 or 5, 6 different sleep labs, and they're always saying, oh, I don't enter into, as soon as I enter into third stage, I kind of get out of it and don't go to fourth. And as soon as I started working with the CJC ipamorelin, my sleep scores, I mean, I have the magical ring.
Aura ring. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just got it. I mean, I got it before I started taking the peptides, and my sleep scores, radically shifted. Spending a hell of a lot more time in deep sleep. REM is a little touch and go, but I mean, there's so many other factors. I mean, we didn't even talk about like EMF and blue lights, but I'm sure, all you biohackers out there are familiar with, blocking blue light and, blocking EMF as much as you can. But again, the CJC ipamorelin, it's very different than other growth hormone, because it actually signals your pituitary gland to release it. So it's not a endogenous growth hormone, which it's the CJC is much safer. And the other beautiful thing about the peptides is they have a very, very, very low side effect profile. So it's very interesting. But you could say that ipamorelin is basically a growth hormone secretor, or secreted drug, yes.
Because you also have this like GHRP, like Greyling hormone.
Greyling.
Yeah. Is it derived from that one, or is it? Do you know that? Because I used GRP6 and I became so hungry. I think that was like this Greyling hormone.
Yes, the CJC and the ipamorelin combo are a lot better at not creating that hunger side effect. So again, it's a lower and slower growth hormone. I know there's tesamorelin, which I haven't experimented with, and there's some other ones, but the CJC ipamorelin combination is probably the best in terms of it doesn't give you crazy hunger cravings, and it's pretty low and slow for helping optimize the hormones. So it doesn't have that effect, which is great. Like I feel normal on it. I take it in the morning, and I take it before bed, and it should be kind of taken away from food both times, because that has an effect at kind of minimizing the effect of the growth hormone.
Yeah, and we also have to note that you are getting the like real good stuff. There's a lot of shady stuff out there online. I mean, especially for me who lives in Europe, I cannot find a good supplier for peptides. I would almost have to like order from Canada or from US or some legit source. I mean, that's, for me, that is the main problem right now with peptides, that there are so much like garbage on the market.
Yes, unfortunately so. Yes, it's obviously a bit controversial if you're wanting to inject yourself with something that says for research purposes only. And I mean, I know there's some labs out there that have been said they're pretty decent, you know, in terms of for the research perspective, you know, peptide science and can labs. But ordering things from China, I mean, there's been a lot of studies saying that they might not kill you, but they won't have the amount of what's said in there. So, you know, you might take them and say, oh, this peptide didn't do anything. Peptides don't work. And, you know, when it comes to peptides, everyone reacts a bit differently to them, and depends how off your system is.
Yeah.
You might need to take, you know, more to get the desired effect, or to get, you know, the saturation, or to get your body up to, you know, some people react a lot quicker to BPC, and some people, you know, but but I know if you go on the International Peptide Society, they have a global list of practitioners that can connect you to getting pharmaceutical grade peptides. And hopefully things will change to make it a lot more accessible to get legitimate peptides.
Yeah.
But, you know, as biohackers, we're, I don't know, sometimes excited to want to try things, or I don't want to say desperate, but sometimes people are desperate and want to try things. And, you know, I'm not advocating that, but if you got to do what you got to do, just be careful, and, you know, try to get them legitimate, because TaylorMade does make, you know, one of the best. Their quality is huge with them, and it's maybe unknown where the other people are getting their stuff from, but, you know, that's kind of where it's at right now. I mean, we're still in the new frontier with them, so use caution and try to get them legit. And if you really want it, you know, get a prescription, or find somebody who to do it, or, you know, try to make it happen.
Go to Russia or go to US.
Or Canada, yeah.
So what about your eyesight? Is it like can you feel that you're like, you say it's like a degenerative disease is getting worse by every year, but can you feel like what you've been doing now is slowing down the process of degeneration, or like?
Well, it's hard to say, but I feel like it's not getting worse.
That's good.
Which is great. And I felt like it hasn't been getting worse for a while. And last time I did an eye exam, I don't have any inflammation, and so I think the goal is to like stop it from getting worse first, pump the brakes on it from progressing or degenerating, and then once it's stable, give it what it needs to start going the other way, to start regenerating it. And if I've had this condition for over 30 years, nobody knows how long it's going to take to get it and swing it to start going in the right direction. I mean, I'm a part of this community with other people like with retinitis pigmentosa and other similar conditions that, people aren't even investigating doing something about it. They're sort of just waiting for like stem cells to be like legitimized and working. And so I'm really at the frontier when it comes to working with the peptides to help slow this down. And I don't feel like it's getting worse. I mean, I see quite well. I mean, often people around me forget that I'm blind.
Yeah.
And in certain conditions I use my cane, and again, I have good eye days and bad eye days too. I'm having a hell of a lot less bad eye days. Like it was times like 10 plus years ago, I'd wake up and if I go outside, all I see was like weird stars and have to move very slow because like I can see these almost electrical like in my field of sight that, my eyes were not doing well, or I felt foggy and in there. And, and so it's going in the right direction.
Yeah. And, I mean, when I met you, it was barely noticeable, I would say, actually. we were inside a big summit, and there was a lot of people around. And when I was talking to you, I actually didn't notice. So I mean,
yeah, a lot of people don't notice, but I mean, I've been trained my whole life to. This might sound weird, but I was trained to sort of hide my vision issue, and you know, so for a long time I didn't use the cane because I was a bit ashamed of it, and I could hide it because in certain situations, you know, I make eye contact and I see, but I use my ears a lot to see as well. They act like my peripheral vision, so you know, I've been hiding my blindness for a long time. But usually at night, you know, that's when people really notice how blind I am. That's when it really affects me is in night.
Okay.
But I've been compensating for it my whole life, which is another factor. But you know, I still have that limited scope right now, and I'm just basically preparing my eyes with the peptides, and I've also got connected to a trial in Florida that they're using stem cells injected in the eye, and are showing some pretty great data. And I think it's the only trial going on right now. It is a private trial, so if I want to do this treatment, I have to pay for it, which is it's quite a bit of money.
Yeah,
it's about 20,000 American for this trial, but it's something that I would like to either crowdfund and use it as well in my film, because that's what my next film is going to be about. It's going to be about peptides. It's going to be about stem cells. It's going to be about continuing the inner search as well, because I've had some interesting things happen while using some entheogenic medicines, like MDMA has a profound effect on my vision as well.
Wow.
You know, I did have an experience once or twice where that medicine gets me sort of relaxed in such a certain way that my visual field actually feels like it opens up.
It's increasing?
So yes, it's temporary while I'm on it, but I don't know exactly what's happening. You know, it really taught me that, you know, they're using MDMA now for post-traumatic stress studies and MAPS. The Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies is using this on, you know, PTSD and depression. And so, and if I tie it into the trauma and the ancestral trauma, it feels like it's acting on that and letting this spot go in my eye and my brain or in my head, where I can almost relax enough and get out of this fear response, which it might be an ancestral fear response, to let go of that fear, and the eyesight opens up. I mean, it's well documented that children or any adults who are in a long-term stressed situation actually encounter a narrowing of the field, because if you're stressed, you don't need to see what's around you. You just need to see what's in front of you and run.
I recognize that.
Right. So
tunnel vision.
Right. So is that what's happening to me? I don't know, but it really taught me that maybe, because, you know, there was some inherited switch. This stress switch was left on from, you know, my ancestors, because of why ever.
Yeah,
so,
but I think he mentioned in the movie also, right, Gabo, that like trauma can be generational, and also I think Bruce Lipton has been talking about that actually you can like inherit trauma.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
there's an amazing book called "It Didn't Start With You" by Mark Wolin, and he really goes into the science on actual genes being switched off by encountering being traumatized in certain ways. And he, in fact, was you know, at 32, he started to lose his eyesight. And then when he started to explore these modalities about like talking to his parents and then learning about his history, learning about his grandparents, he found a way through to actually regain his sight through alleviating his traumas. He's got a few different modalities and methods, and I've actually had a conversation with him, and it's something that I also want to explore in my documentary as well. Like, it's another, you know, it's another thing that I'd like to explore. So that's kind of my goal, is to really to kind of rise a little bit more to the top and fine tune and focus on what's happening still surrounding my vision, and let go and give it the best environment possible to turn these genes back on. So I'm hitting it from a few different angles. Again, I'm hitting it from the inner world and the outer world again.
Yeah, but it sounds logical to do that. I mean, that's what we have to do as biohackers. I think we have to attack the problems from many angles. I mean, medicine is usually about just like a molecule will solve everything, but I mean, we know that that's not the truth. The world is not black and white. I mean, you need to work with so many different stuff to really like find the problem. And that's what intrigues me about the method of biohacking.
And, you know, nothing goes away until it teaches you what you need to know.
Yeah. True.
And that's on like so many different levels.
Yeah.
So that's something that I always remember.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting journey, to say the least, and it hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
You know, dealing with vision loss and sight loss has been a big challenge for me, and it's, you know, I've had a lot of days, you know, in the past, you know, super depressed and you know, lying on the floor and just like sort of gave up on things. And then you realize that you get empowered by reading other people's books and by other people's stories, and other people's like, oh wow, that's possible, and it inspires you to move forward. And again, that's why I wanted to give back with my film, and you know, and I want people to see it, because we work pretty hard on the film, me and my producers, and you know, we're still trying to arrange for people to see it. You know, a lot of people message me, so I send them like a private link, because it's not available online yet. And you know, I'm hoping to submit to some conferences and some festivals just to have people see it. But you know, in this day and age of content, that's the other thing. There's so many things to watch and see, and you know, so it's been a bit tricky to get people to see it as well.
But if people are curious about the movie and they want to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram as the at blind biohacker. You know, you can send me a DM, and I can send you the film, or you know, if anyone's having any conferences and would like to do some public screenings of the film, again, contact me, and we can arrange, and we can do a Q&A and all that stuff as well. So that's a big part of it too.
Yeah. Sounds really interesting. And you should do the GoFundMe for the stem cell project. I think that would be really interesting to see.
Well, I'd like to do that, and I'd like to do the stem cell and to go fund my second film, but I think I will be doing that. So look out for that, and I'd appreciate all your support in that sense. So if you guys want to donate, but I haven't set it up yet, but once it is, I can reach out to you and see where we go from there. But you know, it'll be huge, and I'd like to document it, and you know, if this is possible, if I can change my sight, there's other things that are possible, that we can change our brains and we can function as a you know, an optimized society, and what a world that would be. So that's a part of my mission too. So it's definitely giving back. So it's exciting. You know, we're in the year 2020, and you know, this 2020 vision, and I'm kind of excited about this year. So there's a lot of cool things coming down the line. So and we have the website too, My Neuroplastic Adventure. as well, and I'm on Facebook as my name, Viktor John Andrew Mifsud. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to other conferences like Paleo Effects. I'm hoping to go to that, and Upgraded Labs and other conferences where we get to meet in person. Because we were all connected over Instagram and our phones, and it's so great connecting in real life, because just the energy of these conferences are just so great. So I'm grateful for Tim Gray and Dasha that put together the Health Optimization Summit. It was just so wonderful. So and it's going to happen again September 12th, I think, 2020 in London, and a few other things. So
we also got the Amsterdam Summit coming up in June, the Biohacker Summit.
Yes.
Hope to see you there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's see if I can make it there. Amsterdam is a beautiful city.
So I really appreciate that you would take your time and tell your story here on the channel. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.